Welcome to the Equip Podcast. Here you'll find conversations from people of all different walks of life, sharing their experiences, the things the Lord has taught them, and things to equip you. Equip is based on Ephesians 4:11-13 that talks about equipping God's people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. That is our goal here, to build you up and equip you through seasons of ups and downs in life. Welcome to the Equip Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Gibson, and today I'm joined by Dawn Bridges. Dawn is married to Lanny and has 2 kids, 1 son-in-law, and 2 grandkids. She has been a fitness professional for 40 years and is certified through the American Council on Exercise. Today, Dawn is here to share about health and wellness. Now, please keep in mind, this is not medical advice, just some helpful tips from learned experience and research. So, welcome, Dawn.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, let's start off with kind of a biblical foundation on where we get this. So what scripture comes to mind when you think about women's health and taking care of ourselves?
Okay, I just now realized you said scripture, but I've got a plethora.
Well, we'll take it.
Okay. From 3 John 2, Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you and that you may be in good health as it goes well with your soul. And then 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20, don't you know your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? For you were bought at a great price, so glorify God with your body. And then I'm learning this as I get older. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones, Proverbs 17, 22. And then some other favorite verses is Isaiah 26:3. You keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. And then there's about 3 more I have to share. Now, to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we can ask or think, according to the power that works within us, Ephesians 3:20. And then delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart, Psalm 37:4. 2 more. I'll just narrow it down to this one. John 3:30, he must increase, but I must decrease. That's both a spiritual application as well as a physical application.
And I love that these verses all have to do with not just physically, but mentally and spiritually taking care of ourselves. And I'll put all of these in the show notes too. So if you're driving or on the treadmill or something, just know you don't have to stop and write it down.
Cool.
So let's start off. So what are some of the obstacles that you see to fitness and wellness?
For me, and I know for a lot of women I work with, the primary one is chronic stress or inflammation, chronic stress. So when we have an adrenaline dump, it's usually fight or flight.
Yeah.
And because, a bear is chasing us. But in our world today, we don't have just 1 or 2 things that happen like that a month or a year. We have a little bit of chronic stress all day long. Deadlines, job. I don't even have to tell y'all what we're stressed about because most of us are stressed about it. So what happens is we still get the adrenaline dump, and that raises our cortisol levels, which then causes belly fat, is just one side effect, but also just a feeling of,
the panic.
I can't catch my breath. And it's inflammation, which is a cause of everything that's wrong, is typically from inflammation, pain, what have you. So chronic stress is a big thing we deal with. Everybody does. All right. And then poor sleep, not getting enough sleep, and not getting restful, rejuvenative sleep.
We talked about that on another episode recently about how she was referencing a book, and it was like, what is the one thing that is hindering you? And she said for her, it's sleep and not focusing on that. It's so important, and it affects us way more than we realize.
It really, really does. And a lot of people deal with sleep issues, whether it's being able to go to sleep, whether it's staying asleep. And I've got some new information I found about that, so I'm excited to share that. And then some other obstacles are poor eating habits and junk, which is like toxins versus food for fuel, food that's going to fuel the body. Some of the toxins are sugar, high fructose corn syrup, which I hope people read labels. That's something I encourage everyone to do, because know what we're putting in our bodies.
Yeah.
Don't just trust because it says something on there like it can say light or healthy, but that's not necessarily what's really there.
Yeah, what replaced the original ingredient to make that. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, there's no guidelines on what they can say on that. Well, there are some, but you can say some things that will make it you think you're healthy eating. Read the label. But high fructose corn syrup actually then sets up cravings for more of it. And it's in tons of kids' stuff. So really read the labels.
Well, and there's some helpful apps you can get to. I know I use the Environmental Working Group app a lot, more for personal care products, but they've got some food things on there too, because then it says, hey, this is what this ingredient actually is, and this is some potential problems based on some studies and research that we've done. And so that kind of helps too.
Yes. And I will say this, like you read on milk and it says RSBT, which is a hormone, has been shown, the government puts this on there, which has been shown not to affect or adversely affect health. It's a hormone. Think about that. So I'm not saying that you can't trust the government. I'm saying you can't trust the government in that statement.
Yeah.
That somebody was paid to come to that result. So just think, if it's a hormone, it's a hormone.
Do your research.
And okay, so let's see. Other obstacles. Not getting enough water. I read a statistic that said 20% of not enough water can cause health issues. So what's the standard? Typically, it's 50% of our body weight in ounces is sufficient. But I just recently read this. If one is exercising, losing weight, or in menopause, pre, post, or after, during, then it's supposed to be 70%.
Interesting.
So, and usually we don't start drinking. I'll just go ahead and throw this in here now. Gulping water is not ideal. Sipping water is better, although I've been having a hard time getting my water in, so I've been gulping it. When you gulp it, you have to go to the restroom so much more frequently, which tells us that it's going through. Sipping it helps it to saturate the body more efficiently.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't it? These little tips. And I'm sure there's others, but, I will say inserting ourselves in stressful situations. Sometimes it's people, and we want to pray for those people that cause us to be stressed, but then we want to protect ourselves in a healthy way and protect them in a healthy way. So just make sure I'm not chronically setting myself up to fail by inserting myself in situations that are stressful.
Well, and I think that goes back to biblical roots too, when the Bible talks about not gossiping. And as women, a lot of women are prone to want to gossip or be in the know what's going on. And that has an effect on our bodies. That can add stressful things to our bodies to be involved in things that we really have no business being involved in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So talk to us some about gut health.
Okay. Gut health is kind of a new thing in the last, 10 years maybe. And it is I'm just going to actually read you this little blurb.
Yes, please.
It is what is your gut microbiome and why is it important? Your gut microbiome includes all the microbes or tiny little microorganisms that live inside your gastrointestinal tract. Trillions of them, of these little microorganisms. There are more microbes in your GI tract than actual human cells. Isn't that interesting?
That's so interesting.
And think of these little microbes as members of a large army inside your body. Some are fighting to keep you healthy, but there are some bad ones too. It's the balancing act of good and bad bacteria that support us to feel better. And what we want is a good diversity of microbiomes, of biomes. So we want good bacteria, and our good bacteria should outnumber the bad bacteria 10 to 1. Now, obviously, the only way you can get that done is to have yourself medically tested. I'm not going to say how you do it, but
it's kind of gross. Yeah.
It's through the bowels. Yes. And you send in a sample. So say no more. But you can increase good biome by, well, let me back up. Some biome is a result of long periods of chronic stress. So gut biome problems, chronic stress. There we go back.
Everything's connected.
And then fasting, and I'm not talking about, of course, fasting is a spiritual application as well, but even just fasting a part of the day can help gut biome and help the body return to homeostasis or the healthy level. Good bacteria, that we've talked about that. In some places you can get good bacteria, sourdough bread, kefir, kombucha, yogurt. Now, yogurt needs to have live cultures.
And not a bunch of sugary junk.
And not a bunch of sugar. And to be honest, not even a bunch of sugar alternatives.
Yeah.
So if you buy it and you're like, oh, I got to have something, you can add some honey. Walnuts are another good fruits and veggies. And please, everyone, rinse your fruits and veggies. I prefer organic. I know that's expensive. You can look up the Dirty Dozen, the ones you should absolutely buy organic. Because, again, it's toxins. It's things that have been genetically modified. And if you go in the grocery store and you're like, I don't know what, usually it's labeled, but if it starts with a 4 on the little product label, that means it's been genetically modified. And you're putting genetically modified cells into your body. If it's a 9, it's fine. It starts with the number 9. It could be 09 or 04, but the 9 means it's organic and it's not genetically modified. So,
well, and I did a sourdough workshop recently that was centered on gut health, and the lady teaching it mentioned a study that she saw where you're supposed to have, as women, we're supposed to have 10 servings of fruit and veggies a day, and men are supposed to have like 12. So then she had us all go around and share how many we had the day before. And I was like, like 5 on a good day. Like, I really got to step it up. But then we made sourdough, and she was talking about how good that is for your gut. So now I just eat sourdough bread and tell myself I'm being really healthy. So listen, this can be fun, people. Like, we can have some sourdough bread and make this fun.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this scary, daunting task.
It's not considered a fruit or vegetable, however.
However, it's fermented, so gut health.
It is. And some of these things cross over. It's like if you're trying to eat for losing weight or whatever, you have to kind of weigh whatever you're going for. But overall, well balanced. Let's see, there was many factors that can affect our gut biome, including diet, activity level, stress, travel, infections, medications, and alcohol intake. If we want to do more to promote a healthy gut biome, then we should try eating a diet rich in fiber, including lots of fruits and vegetables, limiting tobacco and alcohol use, and engaging in regular exercise. And alcohol is another thing that causes inflammation, and don't shoot the messenger here, but and I know it's become a real trend, but it actually depletes brain. There's a new study. People are like, oh, but it's so good, and Jesus had it, and blah, blah. There's a new study that shows that alcohol really can, especially for people that deal with depression, it can give them a false sense of feeling good. But then when they come off of it, they're even lower. So alcohol really, and it messes with the brain and the body.
Well, and it's interesting that you talked about depression, because what a lot of people don't realize is serotonin and dopamine are produced in our gut. And so if you have poor gut health, it's likely to affect your mental health, which again goes back to the fact that we are also connected, mental, physical, spiritual, that if one is out of balance, the others are also likely to be out.
Taylor, you should be doing this talk.
Oh, I love this time. I love this area. So talk to us about some of the healthy habits that we can incorporate mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Okay. So let me just talk about the spiritual first is, we need to have that prayer time, that quiet time, that meditative time on the Lord to quiet the mind. We also need, and this is a mental issue, we need to heal past trauma. That's something I'm seeing a lot of on social media. And so, say for example, someone's has lost a loved one, and they've never dealt with that, and and I'm not saying that there's not going to be grief. There's going to be grief forever, but there are levels of grief, and so, excuse me, healing that past trauma, going through grief share, finding a group of like-minded individuals that can build each other up, not living in the past, not living in the future, living in the present.
Well, and finding a Christian counselor too, which if you're local to Tyler, reach out. We've got some recommendations on some local area ones.
Yes. Praise music, saturate ourselves with praise music. That really helps to set the mind on higher things and less on our circumstances. Helping others, that really ministers to ourself as well as to others when we do things for other people. And a lot of people are like, well, I can't get out and I get it. Just this week, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I had a friend that reached out on social media, and she's really going through a difficult time. Man, I just started ministering to her and texting her and messaged her privately. And she just said, oh, Dawn, you don't know how much this helps me so much. So we can minister whether we're actually with someone, near someone, even in the same town with them, through social media, through texting, through emailing, but just to reach out to people that are hurting. That is a spiritual blessing to us and to them. And then another part of the mental is to laugh. I mentioned in my verse, one of the verses is laughter is good for the soul, good medicine for the soul. Listen to fun music. I even said this, I say this all the time. Go to YouTube and click Carol Burnett and you will laugh. Now that's old school, but just find some things that help you to laugh. You can watch reels. Those are hilarious, some of them. And then just dance, turn on some fun music, go around the house. No one has to see you and just dance.
See, and then you could video yourself and then laugh at yourself.
Yeah, turn it into a reel.
There you go.
Excuse me. Okay, so those are some spiritual and physical, and there's a gazillion others. But that daily time with the Lord is important, and to start our day with that. And then some other healthy habits. Obviously, we talked a little bit about eating food to fuel the body. Food is not a hobby. Food is not a hobby. Sometimes I see these people that will post these recipes that I'm sure they're like 1,000 calories. And so we kind of have to set our mind off of that as being a reward. I read somewhere where someone said, I used to think eating healthy was not pleasant. But I've actually kind of come full circle with that too, because I used to be, it has to be something with sugar. Now, some good crunchy lettuce, berries, fruit in a salad, and that's my jam.
That's your jam.
And the thing is, you feel better. It helps the gut biome. It's just really so much better. So ideally, the ways to fuel the body instead of it being a hobby is to eat protein and carbs together equals energy.
Okay.
Protein and carbs equals energy. Protein burns more calories to digest than there are in the protein.
Interesting.
So protein is a really good source. It helps with muscle. It helps us feel fuller. You do have to have carbs also for muscle, but carbs, and let's just be honest here, most clean, healthy carbs don't come out of a crinkly package. That's not to say you can't have them, but moderation. Moderation. I mean, there's a certain brand of chips that we buy. And it's supposed to be 5 servings per package. Laney and I both are like, there's 2 servings in that, and that's all there is. So we can really realize we can get through a lot of food without even realizing we're eating it. And it takes 20 minutes for our body to tell us we're full. So how much can we eat in 20 minutes before our body tells us we're full? I'm not even going there, but you guys know.
I can slam some chips and queso in 20 minutes.
Okay, so the protein and carbs together equals energy. And then we want healthy fats for our skin, nails, hair, but also to help us feel satiated. Avocados, nuts and seeds, extra virgin olive oil, which should be cold pressed.
Okay.
Oily fish, which are typically marine sources, salmon, tuna, they have DHA in them, which helps the brain against aging. And aging brains is a real problem in our society these days. Coconut oil, eggs, the whole egg, grass-fed beef, which is considered a healthy fat. That's another thing we were talking about, our food. If you can afford to buy grass-fed, it's so much better. And it's expensive, but you can stretch it, you know. And so
and sometimes it's going to be prioritizing depending on in the season you're in. You may not be able to buy all organic or all grass-fed, but if you can maybe prioritize one area or know, like, at least I'm doing what I can. Even if you're buying a frozen bag of vegetables, at least you're getting some vegetables. They may not be organic, and that would be ideal, but you have to have grace for yourself.
Just realize, yes, what we're putting into our body. Let's see, and dark chocolate is a healthy fat.
Now, like 70-80% dark chocolate, right?
Right, the kind that's like my sister,
the bitter kind.
My sister says the reason it's healthy is because you only want one piece.
Your sister's correct.
That is true. Okay, and then movement and exercise. Walking is the best exercise to lower cortisol outside. And because you're getting sunshine, vitamin D3, that's another thing many of us are deficient in. If you have to take a supplement, make sure it's vitamin D3 with K.
Okay.
So that it absorbs appropriately, not into soft tissue, but absorbs appropriately. Just like we were learning that calcium that's just rocks builds up in blood vessels. It's the same thing. Vitamin D3 with K. I think it's K2, but it's K.
Do some research, talk to your doctor.
Exactly. Exactly. So movement. So if you have an Apple Watch or you just watch the clock, get up and move 2 minutes every hour if you have a desk job. Minimum 2 minutes every hour. Walk around the block. It lowers cortisol. So instead of just, I don't have time to go for a 30-minute walk, just, you've got 15 minutes, go walk around the block and do that as often as possible.
Well, and thankfully now that we're getting some cooler weather, it'll be a little bit more pleasant.
Yes. And I used to say, well, I guess I could go walk at the mall. My family laughed because it's like, there's a sale.
There's a sale.
Okay. So walking, strength training. Strength training is shown to lower cortisol over time. Oh. Strength training is your best friend. It increases bone density, another thing for aging women, but now bone density, low bone density is also, we're seeing it in men.
Oh, wow.
So it's important to just think resistance. It can be your body weight, squats or what have you, and but increasing bone density and increasing that muscle. Muscle burns longer than cardio. And let me just say this about cardio. Cardio is good, but long bouts of cardio are not. For example, if you exercise for an hour of just cardio, your body can begin to cannibalize muscle. It doesn't necessarily burn fat. It can then start going into burning muscle. I know. That's why you see like long distance runners will be skin and bones because there's no muscle. We got to have muscle. Muscle. And as while I'm on this subject, I saw an interesting statistic the other day. It said a study of people 40 and older showed that those with low muscle mass and strength were 6 times more likely to have cognitive impairment. Cognitive is the brain. Cognitive impairment. So I'm going to read it again. A study of people 40 and older showed that those with low muscle mass and strength were 6 times more likely to have cognitive impairment. I was amazed. I didn't realize. I just didn't even know.
Yeah. And we'll put some of these sources that you've used and the studies that you looked at in the show notes too, if people want to dig a little bit deeper.
That'd be great. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Exercise. So planks. A new one that's kind of resurfaced is kind of that small, those rebounders, those little bitty mini tramps. You can get them with handles now. Jump up and
down.
Little
trampoline things?
Yeah. That's also good for the brain.
Okay. So I have a friend who was getting married. So we went to her bachelorette weekend and she wanted to do one of these trampoline exercise classes. And I had seen them on Instagram and I was like, that looks easy. It looks fun. So we get in it. Let me tell you, like 2 minutes in and I was like, how am I supposed to do this for an hour? It's no joke.
Anybody that's jumped on the trampoline recently, like with their grandkids, it's like, I got to sit down.
Yes.
It's really
exhausting.
It's great for the brain too, because it's that jumping up and down. Swinging is good for the brain, all that kind of stuff. But strength training, and start out small weights, and then just make sure your body is in alignment, and really. So here's a couple of tips: work a different muscle group every day. Okay. So in other words, if I do biceps today, I don't do biceps tomorrow. You want to give your muscles a chance to rest and to recover. And the reason I say muscle burn, so if I get these when you are weight training, you get these little micro tears in the muscle. So you burn 30, 50, depending on how much heavy you lift, to 100 calories per hour for your body to repair those micro tears. And then your muscle actually grows when you're in REM level sleep.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then
see, it all ties together.
And then eating protein and carbs within an hour after you strength train kind of helps also feed that muscle.
That is so helpful.
Yes, it is. It's just the little things. Okay, so speaking, I could talk a lot more about strength training and exercise and movement, but we want to. People are like, I can't. I mean, I read somewhere where somebody just during COVID they just walked around their house, in the heat, just walk around the house, and keep that movement going. It helps our brain. It helps everything to keep going with movement. You can also count your steps, not literally, but use a counter and try to get your steps in and challenge yourself, I think, okay, so breathing. My next is breathing. This is something I've learned most recently is breathing. Well, we have all heard, breathe in through your nose, blow out through your mouth. And that lowers cortisol and it helps us relax. There's also some that lower the heart rate. I just learned this one not too terribly long ago. Breathe in for like 4 seconds. Hold for like 7. Exhale out for 8 seconds. Okay. And that will literally lower your heart rate. I read that because, so breathing, is that all I was going to say about that? Yes. In relation to sleep, because a lot of people have a hard time going to sleep. Doing that breathing will help lower your heart rate and help your body relax. Magnesium lotion for sleep is the bomb.
Really?
We often are now magnesium depleted because our ground doesn't have magnesium. Used to, if you eat root vegetables, then you would get enough magnesium. Because of all the pesticides and the runoff of things put into the ground, we don't get magnesium like we used to. Yes, you can take a magnesium supplement. You just have to be, and there's probably some in a multivitamin that you take. But this is kind of a different kind of magnesium. If you put it topically, it helps calm and it helps reduce pain. And you put it on the bottom of your feet and it helps you sleep. Now, if someone's very, very depleted, it could sting a little bit on the bottom of your feet. And don't put it on an open sore because it will sting like crazy. So when my grandson, Noah, he would sleep with us at our house, and I would put magnesium lotion on him. He'd just be conking right out. One of my clients the other day said, Dawn, I just tried it, and I just slathered it on everything that hurt, and I was out like nothing.
So do you have a good brand that you like?
The one I get is on Amazon because it's a lotion, and it has, I can't even tell you the name of it.
I'll put the link in the show notes. Yeah.
But get whatever's convenient for you. There's most of the things local are oils, which is fine. As my mom said, I don't like to use oil. It gets on my sheets. So, but
do what works for you.
Do whatever will work and that you'll use. But it really is. And then there's some sleep positions. Crossing your arms and crossing your ankles is similar to being in the womb.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
So crazy.
But yeah, it works. And then to quiet our mind, this is a new one I learned. So you breathe in. You can all do this with me. Breathe in through your nose. Exhale mouth. Now just relax your neck, your shoulders, your jaw. Breathe again. Close your eyes. Now ask yourself this question. I wonder what my next thought will be.
Interesting.
Did your brain go blank? That's what it's supposed to do.
That was so weird.
And I've read people that, some of the comments I read on that little action, people were like, first time my brain has been blank in it forever. But
well, and as women, we just constantly have thoughts.
What do I have to do tomorrow? What do I have to do? What happened today? Blah. Yeah. So I wonder what my next thought will be. And your brain, don't overthink it. Just say it and then relax into it.
Don't overthink it. That's easy.
Because Lanny was like, okay, now what's it supposed to be? And I'm like, so we had to practice several times.
Yeah.
For people that are really strong thinkers. Okay, so I read this about sleeping. Your body temperature starting around 10:30 begins to lower in preparation for bed. So that, a little caveat here, that's why we shouldn't eat late. We should stop eating at least 2 hours before we're going to bed because digestion raises the body temperature. We don't want that when we're getting ready for bed. So the body temperature drops starting at 10:30 and it drops a degree. I don't know how much, but it can't keep dropping all night long.
Yeah.
So between 2 and 3, typically, it stops dropping. And most people wake up between 2 and 3. It's kind of a biological thing.
Interesting.
And I was doing that, and we'd have the room free, especially when we go to a hotel, freezing. And I'm like, why am I hot? And it's because the body temperature stops dropping. Now, this particular sleep doctor that this one I saw on YouTube, and he said, if at all possible, don't look at the clock when that happens. These are people who wake up and then can't go back to sleep. Try not to look at the clock, which is a test in self-control. Can I not look at the clock? And because then your mind goes, okay, I've got 3 hours left before I have to be up, or
Yep.
4 hours. Hurry up, go to sleep. That just causes stress. He said, if possible, don't go to the restroom, because when you get up, your heart's going to be elevated. You walk across the room. If you have to go to the restroom, obviously do so.
Don't wet the bed. Yeah.
It's better if you don't. And he said, definitely don't get a book. Don't look at your device. Remind me, I need to talk about that. Don't look at your iPhone or your iPad at all. And he said, even if you're just laying there and not sleeping, there's still some rejuvenation that happens from just laying comfortably relaxed. And even if you're not sleeping. And then do that little brain trick. That's a different one of, I wonder what my next thought will be. And just relax everything. I find myself, sometimes my jaw is clenched. My shoulders are tight. And I'm like, why can't I go to sleep? Because I'm all tensed up. The sleeping position is to try to sleep with your mouth closed. Mouth together, teeth apart, tongue in the roof of the mouth. And that will help us not snore, not wake ourselves up from whatever, breathing funny. And it helps, it's just a healthier way to sleep. It's better for dental, teeth, oral hygiene, everything. So there's that. The devices, we should get off our devices, or at least turn them to sleep mode, where they're dark yellow and not the bright white light. Now they're learning that it affects eyes. It's damaging to the eyes and damaging to skin. I'm telling you. The blue light is damaging. Of course, blue light is also fluorescent lights. And but your phones, your computers, your iPads, turn them to dark mode and turn them to not bright. And then where you can get non-prescription blue light blockers, because
you can get some on like Amazon or something.
You can get them at Drug Emporium.
Yeah,
I mean you can find them. Let's see. So that I think is all I had to do with breathing. Stretching is and this is, we should stretch, warm up before we exercise. We definitely should stretch after we exercise. We should be stretching. There are some muscles that we just kind of need to be stretching every day. I just recently learned that, you know how people in third world countries sit? They're on their feet. They squat all the way down. Like, imagine people at rice paddies, or you've seen those people cooking in markets on commercials or on TV. That is a healthy way to sit. Most of us can't do that. It's a squat, but it's going all the way down. You're opening up the hip flexors. You're opening up the lower body. I read where if you have trouble getting there, put a foam roller against the wall and let that help you go as low as you can. And even just sit with the foam roller against the wall and get your hips as low as you can.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
So interesting.
I say interesting a lot, but it is.
I feel like I've said it this whole podcast. I feel like I'm learning so
Every
much.
other word is interesting.
This is all so fascinating and hopefully a really helpful resource to our listeners. And like I said, we'll link some of this stuff in the show notes. Anything else you want to share before we close?
Fascia blasting and cupping. Those are just great to help.
Now, cupping is what the Olympic athletes use, like Michael Phelps and all that. What is fascia blasting?
Fascia blasting is a tool. I brought one. You can get a knockoff. Ashley Black is most well known for fascia blasting, but this is, of course, our listeners can't see this, but this is a little tool.
I'll put a link too.
It's like $8.99, $99 on Amazon. So her products start at $35 and $40 and $100. But
I'm here for a knockoff.
So fascia blasting is your fascia is right under the skin. It's like spider webs.
Okay.
And it is interlinked and everything. And if, let's say you hit something and it knots up or whatever, it can get tangled. And when it gets tangled, that stops blood flow. It doesn't necessarily stop it, limits it. It can, whatever. And so that's what causes pain. So we want to loosen all the fascia. It helps with cellulite. It helps with circulation. It helps. The reason I got into it was because of a foot injury. And I was looking for everything that would help me feel better. And you can do it on your feet, your head, your face. any place that has cellulite, and it's just, you have to do it. However, this is the directions: side to side, up and down, or diagonal, not in a circle. Okay. Circles tangle fascia.
Is there like a timing that you should do it?
Anytime.
Nice.
I mean, like I put one whenever I'm going to sit down. I just put one next to my chair, and I just rub on anything that hurts and areas that I want to improve that the look of my skin. Mm-hmm. And the cupping really helps. It's a good one to work both of those at the same time.
Well, and cupping is like a deep tissue massage equivalent.
Which is what fascia blasting is also. You start out warm. You start out light, ideally warm with a little oil. Mm-hmm. You can do it in the shower with, soap. Mm-hmm. And don't put oil on and then get in the shower. I just don't want anyone to fall.
Oh, gosh. Can you imagine?
But it's great. I mean, Laney had something hurt. What should I? And the first thing I said was fascia blast it, babe. Fascia blast it. He kind of gets sick of me saying that.
Well, yeah.
But it works.
What they get themselves into.
It works. It works. That's all I can say.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for sharing all of this today. Is there anything else that you want to add before we close?
Yes. Thank you, Taylor. It's been a great opportunity to be here. I did want to add one little caveat about my comment about difficult people in our lives. We want to, in the name of Jesus, love and minister to them at all costs. And kind of what I was saying was, at times, there's just the bottom line of we just need to pray and continually to pray and bring them to the throne and minister as much as we can and allow Jesus to do his work and realize that difficulties are part of life. Mm-hmm. So we want to love those people.
And it's like Pastor Michael said in Sunday's message about loving people. And we don't always realize what people are going through, what spiritual battles they might be fighting. And so bringing them before the throne is so important. I love that you mentioned that too. Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, we have 2 questions that we ask every guest before we end the show. What is something you're learning and what is something you're loving?
Well, thank you. I am learning about the vagus nerve is kind of the main nerve for the nervous system, and that there's a lot of things that we can do when we are in distress and not feeling well. And of course, I want to balance that also with prayer. That's also part of the whole thing. And just realizing that the things that we learn are not to replace anything the Lord does in our lives. But the vagus nerve is controls the nervous system. So things like humming, breathing, all those things, which is really a type of meditating and praise. Mm-hmm. But to do those things and not just go throughout life drudging, stressed, and not accomplishing much.
Well, it's so interesting to me that you mentioned that, because my counselor and I have actually talked about that a lot in counseling sessions and how to regulate that and bring that back into regulated order and the spiritual, physical, emotional practices we can do to help with that. I mean, it's key to helping how we react and respond to other things and people that come up. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting.
It is.
What are you loving?
I talked earlier about fascia blasting and cupping, but I am loving doing those things and moving and lifting weights, because those kind of things are what I want to be able to incorporate continuously in my life so I can love on my grandbabies, so that I can be well and strong and be able to get down on the floor and play with them. And at your age, that doesn't make sense because you're like, get down on the floor. What's she talking about? But as we age, those are the things that are hard. Uh-huh. And so fascia blasting, cupping, strength training, moving, those are the things that just help me feel better. And we all want to feel better. And we all want to be able to move for his glory and for the ones we love.
Oh, I love it. Well, you've got some sweet grandbabies, so I'm glad that you get to give them a little shout out.
Thank you. Glory to God.
Well, Dawn, thanks for being here today. I know this episode was very educational and helpful to me, and I hope it will be to our listeners as well.
I do too. Glory to the Lord. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Equip Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know when a new episode drops. And follow us on social media to stay connected. We're at GABC_women. See you next time.